Okay, so this is part 2, and now I know why I do these so early in the morning or so late at night. The phone does not seem to stop, but so anyway, so I think that on part 1 I had left off with my mom, and so we put a claim in, violation of her privacy and everything. And I think that I might have misstepped just a little bit here with, I did have a conversation with Frank. I have made it public on my channel, where I'm speaking with Frank, asking him about the opinion from the Attorney General's office. And I was like, where's that opinion? Where's that opinion? I'm sure you saw Lisa Pinsnall got back to me yesterday. And he goes, well, you got the opinion. And I said, the opinion is there was no opinion. So I think that I was leading up to, Frank Milos was ready to die on that hill of that he was right. And he was even bringing the Attorney General's office into this. And he was going to double down, triple down. He was going to do whatever it took to not make it look like it was his fault. Right? So, and this seems to be a pattern, and, I'm not going to get too involved in that. But, so it was a couple of weeks, I think, before the claims committee meeting was going to hear, or at least pass the paper on this claim that we had placed. And I'm going to say it was right around the 2 weeks. It might have been a little bit closer, but anyway, my mom wasn't feeling well, and she was slowing down. Mind you, this woman that was abused by Frank Milos had open heart surgery 4 years before this, 4.5 years before all this stuff, that Frank Milos was going to abuse my mother. And he did. So anyway, like I said, it might have been like, I don't know, maybe 9 days. I don't know. My mother wasn't feeling well. I made an appointment. We brought her to the cardiologist because she felt that she was having some fluttering and things just didn't feel right. And I know she was under a lot of stress because of Frank Milos. But anyway, so we brought her in, and she was in AFib, atrial fibrillation. And the doctor said, you need to be cardioverted. So it ends up, I don't know what night the claims committee, I'll have to go back because I know that I have the dates. But it was the very next day that she was going to be cardioverted. And I remember being very stressed. And I know my mom was nervous. So I told my mother, no worries, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to go. When they call your name, I'm going to let them know that you can't be there. So I figured I'd videotape. It's a public meeting. Within my rights, I can do this. So as I'm videotaping, Lizette Gomes, who's sitting next to Frank Milos, who works in Frank Milos' office and knows what's on the agenda. She knows what's coming up next, right? Now she starts to videotape me on her phone. And she's sitting there and she's staring at me. She's staring me down. She's, I guess, for an intimidation. Well, you can look at that because I've also made that public. And, I threw a couple of things back at Frank with, unless there's an arrest, this is not a public record. He had told me at one point he couldn't unring the bell, so I reminded him of that. He gave me the eyes, like he was so disgusted that I, as Joseph's mother, was offended by what he not only did to us, but what my mother was going to be doing tomorrow because of the stress that Frank fucking Milos had put on her. And I mentioned it, that she was going the next day for a procedure that I was taking her for. So, that paper was just, put to the side. Put to the side, because God forbid you prove that Frank Milos is a dumbass. So, this has recently come up because Mark Desisto wants my mother's journal. He wants my mother's journal. She wants the words. He wants the words that my mother wrote in her journal for his viewing purpose. I don't know what. I don't know why he would need to see, because any person with, a half of a brain could only imagine what she went through with the likes of Frank Milos. So anyway, the very next day, we're at Rhode Island Hospital, and, we're sitting there, and Amma, Apostle, comes in, and my mother and Amma are giving each other kind of support. Amma was there. We knew that Amma was sick. And it's like this check-in preoperative room. And unfortunately, these types of things, they're not private. Amma knew what my mother was there for, but Amma would have known anyway had she been watching the claims committee meeting. So my mother's cardioverted. We take her home, and my mother says to me, "I want to talk to you about something." And I said, "Whatever you want to say, you say it." And she said, "I've been praying a lot, and I'm having a very hard time with what's going on here." And we had a little bit of a heart-to-heart, and she said, and she wrote it in her journal, she said, "I don't understand how anybody could be so evil." And I said, "Who's being evil, Mom? Tell me. Who are you praying for?" And she started naming the names. And it's funny because when she would mention Frank Milos, I think that, and in her journal, she puts apostrophe S, because it was always, I called Frank Milos's office, or so I think that she felt that his name was Milo, but what he did to my mother, what Frank Milos did to my mother, and in her journal, she wrote a lot. She wrote daily. She wrote how her daughter was being played. She wrote how this city has changed. The police department had changed. The administration had changed. And things looked very cloudy and gray. Like evil was overpowering this whole situation. And evil was Frank Milos. Now, I know that I have mentioned to Frank that, my mother died without even an apology from that son of a bitch. Died without even an apology from him. And I hate skipping forward, but okay, so Mark Desisto. Hey, Mark. So this is where Mark comes in. And Mark lets us know that it wasn't a violation of privacy. There was no violation of privacy. Frank did everything that he should have done. Now, Frank was probably telling him at that time that he had that opinion. I don't know who knows the truth. I do. But I don't know at what point, if anybody has ever known the truth. But they're going to know it now. They're going to know it because I'm going to say it. Because, not this past December, but the December before, Frank Milos wanted a settlement agreement where they would never admit that they did wrong. And that's big on Frank Milos's mind. He does not want this information out there. And I don't blame him. It does not paint him in a very good light. His involvement with the Pawtucket Police Department and releasing private information and receiving private information and medical records and Turtle Boys sports, and knowing that in federal court there are a list of police officers that have been stalking 2 individuals in this city, one being me, on social media. The fact of the matter and if you don't think I have the list, I have the list of everybody that has gone in my son's file. I have the list. So when you're surprised because your names are coming out and you have to tell what you were doing in there, the list is there. And I know Mark Desisto doesn't want to give the list again, but I have the list. And I wanted an updated list, but I think that we can pretty much guarantee that we'll be receiving the rest of the list. And your name, if you've typed in my son's name, if you've gone in my son's file, your ass is going to be called to court to testify what the fuck you were doing in there. Brian Beach, Paul Trout, Jason LaFond, Carrie Hermansky, Tina Gonzalez. What were you doing before you were even chief? What were you doing? Robert Pickett, Theodore DeGisitz, Mullen Holden, the list goes on. Michael Caine. Tracy Lee Delaney, a fucking dispatcher. Tracy Lee Delaney was in it. So anyway, I'm going to go back. So Mark Desisto, no privacy was violated. No, that never happened. I'm not dealing with this. No violation of privacy. None, right? My mother doesn't even get a call from piece of shit Frank Milos. My mother's deceased now. She died without an apology from that son of a bitch. Anyway, so years go on. Nothing happens. And recently. Mark Desisto's office gave an opinion on whether or not someone could receive that report. And he charged, Jeff Desisto charged the city of Pawtucket $500 and something for his opinion. And the opinion of why that would not be a public record is all about privacy. 29 reasons why Frank Milos should never release. And no laws have changed. The laws are still in place. The same laws that were in place when Frank Milos didn't know how to do his fucking job. Same laws. So, and I know Mark Desisto doesn't want to say how much, his office is getting paid, for his side hustle. He works, under the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust, and I cannot talk about them at this point. And I always say that, and I know that a lot of people respect that, and a lot of people call and question what's going on. At this point, I cannot speak on the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust. There's one aspect of it that I am going to get into, but the rest of it I cannot. So anyway, and I don't know the date, but it was around the Turtle Boy Sports date. Frank will remember because it's the day that his mother died. And I went in there, and I've already told the story. I'm not going to bore people with the details, but I walked into that office, and Frank looked like he was, I don't know, his eyes were red. They were, his pupils were dilated. He was just, I don't know, something was up, and he wasn't himself. And nobody said anything. Nobody said anything to me about what was going on with Frank. And it was only after that I realized that day that I walked in there that Frank had lost his mom. And that bothered me. Even though what Frank did to my mother, it still bothered me that I would be that person. That on the day that your mom died, that I would show up. I could have showed up a week later. That I still had that compassion for another human being, even though it was Frank Milos, who had put my mother through so much. I still had that feeling of I didn't have that right on that particular day to address the Turtle Boy Sports situation. Even though they sent jujitsits to, I don't know what he thought he was going to do. He doesn't scare me. In case anybody wonders, because don't wonder, there is not one person in this world that can intimidate me. Not one. Not one that could hurt me more than I've already been hurt. Not one person. I mean, as shocking as the Turtle Boy Sports situation is and was, and what they were able to get away with, and what James Spano did down in New Shoreham, all under the very watchful eye of Tina, knowing very well that he was going to, that he was involved with the Turtle Boy Sports situation. The Attorney General's office very well aware that the Pawtucket Police Department had sent someone to my home. And Pawtucket was like, no, that didn't happen. Yeah, it did. It did. Frank Milos has the email. Ask him for it when James Spano called for them. But anyway, Frank Milos has not shown one give a fuck for what he has done, what he's been involved in, and then I'm not going to get into the newest. But there is new development on Frank Milos. There is new development on Frank Milos. There are some things that we're going to be able to talk about, and some things that are going to be a very big surprise. But stay tuned, because we're going to be back in court. And it's not for the August 15th. We have been preparing. We have been documenting. We have been copying emails and conversations and things like that. I even have, now here I am saying the police report is wrong. The police report is wrong. Now, I know that it's wrong. Frank Milos knows it's wrong. Dave Holden knows it's wrong. My attorney a month ago said he knows exactly why this is happening the way that it is, because the proof of the 11 years of abuse. And we actually had to go through, and it's hundreds of phone calls, thousands of emails, of my years of trying to get this report corrected. And so they're very well aware that that's what I've always wanted, and I can prove that, what I have been saying for years is wrong in the report, and so anyway, I'm not going to get involved in a lot of that, but it goes to, the retaliation, the bullying, the abuse, panic attacks, heart attacks, what my mother went through, what my husband has gone through, what my husband has gone through with his job. All because of the Pawtucket Police Department, Frank Milos, Tina Gonzalez, Don Grebien, Tony Pyrus, the list goes on. The Perez, Holden, Braga, Connors, and Carrie Hermansky. And she's a highlighted one. She is actually pretty highlighted. Her file is pretty highlighted. And it looks like Frank Milos isn't going to get his non-disclosure, and he's not going to get that the city isn't going to admit to doing wrong, because I'm going to prove 11 years of what has happened here. Oh, and getting back to, and Don Grebien, shout out. Hey, Don. Remember when you said to Musa that I need a psychiatrist? Have you checked on Perez lately? Because what I was saying is the truth. And what Perez did is mental health issues. Either mental health, homophobic, whatever it was. I don't know. I heard that he was homeless at the time. I don't know what the story was happening with him on that day, but he thinks, hey, Don, shh, quiet down over there, because I know that you're probably upset over this, but Perez thinks that Massachusetts investigates deaths in the city of Pawtucket. So I just don't know. How much are we paying Massachusetts to do that? Is that a thing? Is that a thing? It's one of those, do unto others as they have done to you. And I won't step over that line. I'm not that person. I could bury Don Grebien in what I have, but I don't like to bring other people into it, innocent people. And when I say bury him with information, not bury him in the ground. So just so that we're clear. But yeah, there has been a lot that has come forward. Police reports that are filled out, and there's no tracking of what happened. There's a lot. There's so much. I'm not that person. I don't retaliate. I don't play that game. Nappy does, though. Nappy will play the whole, I could say something right now that would really upset you. Say it. Is this some kind of is this a game we're going to do back and forth? You have something to say, you say it. Say it to me. But anyway, Nappy's another story in himself. He thinks that people think about dying, and that's why they write that on a death certificate, because he's not much of a dumb fuck. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good day. I actually have to go over a few things with a few people, and my day might be a little clogged up. July 15th. And we're rolling.